is almost up 10%, as Nucor is uniquely involved with infrastructure. Can you please tell us the importance of this act and the importance of it to Nucor?
You know, today was a significant day for our nation, Jim. Seeing a bipartisan support and approval through the Senate is such a huge step. And I would tell you, my 25 years in this industry, we are as close to having a meaningful infrastructure bill in this nation. And as Nucor sees it, Jim, it's really through a lens of three things. It's about America's safety, America's competitiveness, and lastly, the resurgence of American manufacturing. If we've learned anything through this pandemic, it's that this nation must be a nation that makes and builds things here in America. And Nucor is poised to benefit and help rebuild the crumbling infrastructure around our country.
Now, I know your predecessors always were building the whole time. I've even questioned your predecessors, saying, you know what, unless we get some sort of infrastructure, this is going to be for naught, especially if the Chinese are allowed to continue to dump steel in our country. Well, it looks like you guys were visionaries. The Chinese stopped, we stopped them, and the mills that you built in the last few years, they really play in this infrastructure bill very, very closely, don't they?
They play amazingly well. And again, the investment strategy for a long time was to continue to invest in the down cycles to create higher highs and higher lows. So the mills that are coming up online now are benefiting from that. We have an amazing team, as you well know, Jim, across Nucor, and again, poised to continue to help rebuild this country.
Now, some of the big areas, roads and bridges, power grid, rail, broadband, water, airports. You could be in every single one of those, right?
Absolutely. We do. And you know, the other thing, Jim, is you think about kind of the global impact of infrastructure. Who better to build and rebuild in the infrastructure as well as the green economy than the most efficient steel producers in the world, which is the United States. And again, Nucor is one of the many leaders of that movement. Today, 70% of what the United States makes from steel is from recycled scrap. If you think about the rest of the world, it's about 27%, and China is 9%. So we are the cleanest steel makers on the planet, and again, poised and ready to go. And if you think about the investment China's making, last year alone, they spent $8 trillion on infrastructure. We have got to stay competitive as a nation, and we're going to continue as a company to invest in our teams, in growth, and continue to build out Nucor's vision.
Okay, so Leon, our country did a great disservice to our American working people by allowing everybody to dump steel. Do you think there is any chance that we repeal the tariffs and allow them dump again because people are saying that steel's gotten too expensive?
You know, Jim, look, at the end of the day, 232 and the tariffs that were implemented in 2018 were not going to be a long-term lever. And so they're going to go away at some point. What I would tell you, and if we think about the imports that hit our shores in 2015-16, spiked to nearly 30%. In that time, we only had about 50 cases that the industry had won against countries that dumped, like China. Today, there's 110. We are in a much better position to ensure the strength of the steel industry and American manufacturing is maintained.
Now, I keep trying to tell people, when you see Nucor selling at 5.9 times earnings, that is wrong. Nucor is a growth stock. It is not a cyclical. And you're going to end up seeing multiple years of Nucor stock going up. Is it not true, sir, that you have very few cyclical characteristics versus the other steels, and the idea that you're trading at what Bethlehem Steel was trading before it went bankrupt is a pretty absurd valuation?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And again, as you well know, Bethlehem's no longer here, right? They went out of business and closed. You know, I think there are three things that are really important that have changed the face of the industry over the last couple of years. Number one is trade that we talked about. Two is our consolidation in the industry has been significant. And three is rationalization. We've seen a much broader rationalization of steel products that are being made. And again, I think you're going to see our industry that Nucor leads continue to trade at higher multiples, and we should. We should be trading at a much higher multiple than where we sit today.
And it's even like today, where you closed $1 billion acquisition that, to me, doesn't sound cyclical at all. It's Cornerstone property.
Absolutely. We're excited about welcoming that team to our Nucor family, and the $1 billion acquisition of Cornerstone gives us a market leadership position in the insulated metal panel business that is going to continue to grow. It's not a cyclical nature like steel, and that's part of our mission statement, is to expand beyond, using the strength of our balance sheet, an amazing team, to leverage the greatest of Nucor into further downstream opportunities like Cornerstone.
And I don't know if people understand it, but when you build a plant, what is the multiplier effect? Because you build plants where nobody else is willing to go.
Yeah, you know, Jim, as we think about it, for every job Nucor creates, there's 4 to 5 indirect jobs that are created. So in our Brandenburg facility, there's going to be about 400 to 500 permanent Nucor team members. When we think about the multiplier on that, we're talking about thousands of team members that are going to get the opportunity to be a part and benefactor for long term. And if you think about Nucor's average annual salary for our team members, it's approaching $100,000 a year. So we're paying really well. And again, and it's poised times like these for Nucor to continue to lead the pack.
The only thing that I was concerned about in this otherwise unbelievable quarter is when I see a plant operating 118% of rated capacity, I wonder if it can keep that up, because that's extraordinary, sir.
It is. And you know, Jim, if you look across the portfolio, we have some of our plants running out of capacity, but many have the opportunity to continue to increase that in the utilization rates. But one of the greatest strengths of Nucor is we can rationalize internally, and we can shift products from one mill to the next to continue to meet the demands, including a meaningful infrastructure bill. So we're going to have to continue to increase our output to meet the demands, and Nucor's ready.
Now, despite the fact that the stock has been very strong and you guys are doing so much right, I was surprised you bought 6.75 million shares back at $91. You have great analysis of where your stock has been in other big cycles. That, to you, sir, seems like a bargain?
Absolutely. You know, Jim, at the end of the day, we have an amazing financial team. Our CFO, Jim Cramer, does an amazing job. And we have an intrinsic value model that we look and we think really long about how do we best return that 40% back to shareholders, either through share repurchases or dividends. And so we're going to continue to look at that and understanding where that value is. But as we think about growth and we think about the opportunity, Nucor is going to continue to meet that reinvestment back to our shareholders.
Well, Leon, I really want to thank you for coming on today and putting everything in perspective. This is an incredibly important bill, Nucor probably being the single linchpin of what can happen here with infrastructure. So thank you for coming back to Mad Money.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jim.
Okay, that's Leon Topalian. He is the CEO and president of Nucor. And my Chapel Trust owns it. I think it's going to be an amazing stock for the rest of the year and more. And still to come, exclusive with Pioneer. Perhaps